But let's begin here this morning with the fierce fighting in Sudan between the country's military government and a paramilitary group. Conditions there are rapidly getting worse, with food and fuel becoming harder to find. The U.S. evacuated its embassy in the country over the weekend. CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Patta is following this for us from West Africa.
As the Sudanese army and a rival paramilitary group were battling it out for power in the country's capital, the U.S. was drawing up a daring plan to rescue its embassy staff caught in the crossfire. This is what Khartoum has looked like for more than a week. Gunshots ringing out in residential areas, fighter jets thundering across apartment blocks, and an international airport engulfed in flames. Despite the declaration of a ceasefire over the weekend, there was no guarantee it would hold. It was into this perilous conflict that U.S. Special Forces were getting ready to execute their dangerous mission, departing from here, Camp Lemonnier, the American military base in the Horn of Africa's strategic nation of Djibouti, flying 1,600 miles to Khartoum and back to rescue their diplomats. On Saturday, Chinook helicopters took off from Lemonnier, refueling in Ethiopia, landing in the Sudanese capital late that night. It took less than an hour to airlift just under 100 people from the U.S. compound before they headed back via Ethiopia to Djibouti. The staff were then flown to Ramstein in Germany. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken no doubt breathing a sigh of relief as he monitored their progress. For the people of this country caught up in the violence, there is no quick escape. Bitter rivals Generals Burhan and Hamdan have turned Khartoum, a city of over 6 million people, into a personal battle zone, triggering a humanitarian crisis and raising the specter of a prolonged and deadly civil war. There are still hundreds of private American citizens inside Sudan asking for help. The U.S. has said while it is committed to assisting them, it is currently not safe for a coordinated evacuation. Deborah Patta, CBS News, West Africa.
So for more on this, I want to bring in John Prendergast. John is part of the U.S. mediation team that negotiated the end of the Ethiopia-Eritrean war. He has worked for the Clinton White House, the State Department, and multiple members of Congress. He has participated in other peace processes in Angola, in Somalia, and Sudan. And he's also the co-founder of the Century, an investigative and policy organization. So you have the street cred to talk about this. Based on your experience, we have two groups here who at one point worked together to overthrow a government, had promised that they were making steps towards democracy, that democracy was a priority. So here, based on what you know and based on your own experience, what can be done to put an end to the violence?
Well, thanks, Anne-Marie. A number of countries have offered to mediate, but these Sudanese generals, they're really warlords, are focused on fighting. The main problem is that the incentives are so stacked in favor of violence, in favor of kleptocracy, rule by thieves, that there's no real counterweight to the continuation of fighting. They have so much to gain from winning the war, but they're paying no price for the destruction of the country. There's no accountability, total impunity. So I think the most important thing that can be done now for the U.S. and Europe and any other country that cares about what's going on in Sudan is to create serious consequences for these warlords for profiting from human misery, ratcheting up targeted sanctions on their entire networks to create severe financial pain for warlords who are creating enormous pain for the people of Sudan.
So that was sort of going to be my next question, because when you said there are no incentives for peace, I thought, okay, how do you create incentives? But you're saying it's not about incentives now. It's not about the carrots. It's about the stick.
I do believe that. I think we've tried carrots. The world has tried carrots for decades with these guys. And we keep giving them a chance to prove that they can do it, that they can build a civilian-led democratic state. They have no interest in that. They're making so much money through smuggling gold, through all kinds of different schemes to loot the Sudanese state. We need the sticks now. And that needs to be a coordinated effort across the world where countries that have and private banks and other entities that have the ability to create leverage in Sudan need to build it, utilize it, and exercise it.
Let me ask you a question just about right prior to this. Like I mentioned, you have these two groups that were successful. They staged a successful coup. So clearly they were able to work together. They worked together over the past few years to, I guess, maintain some sort of order in Sudan. Where did things break down? Because obviously they have the ability to cooperate.
Well, there really are two functioning major military entities in the country right now: the Sudanese army, and then there's this band of this paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces that had its origins in the Darfur genocide. They were the group that was armed by the government to fight against and conduct the genocidal activity in Sudan that led to millions of displaced and hundreds of thousands of deaths. And then this entity that had conducted this genocide was built up by the previous president to be an alternative to the Sudanese army. So there are two major armed groups in the country, and eventually both of them, like, I don't want the other to exist anymore.
Right.
We want to monopolize the violence, the capacity to utilize violence. We want to monopolize our control of the economy. And so both of them have been looking for ways to undermine each other. And finally, it's now exploded into open conflict between these two factions.
And in the middle of it all, of course, are the citizens. We know that the U.S. and other countries have been working hard to get those working within their sort of diplomatic realm out of the country. But there are many citizens that literally cannot leave their homes. Britain is asking its citizens not to go outside. This is a humanitarian crisis in the making. What can be done to supply citizens with essential resources while in the midst of this fighting?
Well, it's a very tricky thing right now because you've got a third of the population already in need before this even exploded. So 16 million people. And now you're seeing aid agencies, their houses, their cars, their trucks being targeted with extreme violence. So a number of aid operations are shutting down or suspending their activities temporarily. So we're going to see, I think, massive food insecurity turn into starvation in some places, particularly in Darfur again. And so you need a united front across the world, pressing these warlords to allow for humanitarian operations to continue. And that means particularly Russia and the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. These countries that are backing factions within Sudan need to step up on the humanitarian side, at least, and press their allies inside Sudan to let the aid operations unfold as they should.
John Prendergast, it's a very sort of disturbing thing unfolding in Sudan. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you too, Anne-Marie.